Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome to another video for the Disney Save. Today, we are refreshing my Snow White's cottage and getting it all ready and prepared to bring it into Ravenwood officially. I told you guys a few videos ago that I was going to be doing this, but I wasn't quite sure how it was going to manifest in terms of a video. And so what I ended up doing is basically there were two lots that needed to come over from Henford on Bagley, which were Snow White's Cottage and Happily Ever After, which was a garden themed after the movie as well. And these two lots are going kind of opposite of one another in this neighborhood. Obviously today I'm working on the Snow White Cottage right here on this lot, and we are very, very close to the previously completed Snow White Castle, which if you haven't seen, I did that. I did a whole tour video for it and it came out so beautifully. I do recommend you go and check all of that stuff out, of course, but I did both of those, and then now we have to do the refresh on this cottage and the refresh on Happily Ever After. And when I was taking a look at both of those lots, I realized that they weren't going to need a ton of work necessarily. Most of the problem is that they were different lot sizes compared to the ones that I'm moving them to. In the case of Snow White's Cottage, this ended up being a really good thing because I have more room here than I had for the previous lot that it was on in Henford on Bagley. And this lot has a whole river in the front of it. It is supposed to have a bridge that your Sims can potentially walk over, and it has a lot of like woods, landscaping, plants, trees, things like that. So I was able to do that to some degree when it existed back in Henford on Bagley. But here I have so much more room to play around with things and really try to make the river specifically look a lot nicer, more rocks, more flowing water, more trees in general too. This is supposed to be, I would say, like somewhat hidden and obscured within the forest. Now obviously we're gonna have to do a little bit of like suspension of disbelief considering that the castle is very visible and just to the left of this, so we're not actually that far from the castle, but those are the kinds of things that we have to sort of ignore in this specific situation. However, I did want to surround the lot with a lot of trees and try to like at least encapsulate just the build in some kind of a woodsy area. So a lot of what you're going to be seeing today is actually going to be landscaping and changing mostly the exterior. The interior did get a lot of refresh as well, don't get me wrong, it was more than I initially thought I was going to be doing, but most of the video was me doing a lot of the exterior and the plants and changing some of the colors around. The interior is all just like a color palette change, some more Ravenwood stuff, and I did make it just slightly smaller so the kitchen had to be redone. But we will talk about all of that when we go indoors. And the next video that you guys should see will be the Happily Ever After refresh. There ended up being enough footage that I was able to make not only this refresh video, but Happily Ever After is getting its own video as well, and it was too much to put all together. I also am making Prince Florian from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. He is not getting missed or skipped. He's just going to be a townie, because the only other alternative to adding him to the Disney Save really was to give him more of an established home and a family, and we know that he has all of those things, but we just don't really ever get to see them. I talked about this a little bit in my Snow White castle video, but we do see his castle once at the end of the movie, and I probably could have like built it, but it was just so much. It gets to the point where when you're looking at the world and I'm trying to plan everything that I know I want to do in Ravenwood and picking all the movies and things that are going to go here, you have to stop yourself at a certain point and say, where's the line? What is a little bit too much? And this world is actually going to have 3 castles total in it. 2 of them I have already made, one of them I have not announced yet. So doing a 4th castle in this world, it's just too much. And then where would it even go? Like realistically, every time I build a castle, I really need to have a 64 by 64, if not at the very least a 50 by 50. I have made it work with less before, but his castle and the way that it was shown, I really don't know what I would have done without the space. So it was just like a really big unnecessary build that didn't need to exist. And a lot of you probably don't even really know what his castle looks like. And because his family is never shown and we don't get a ton of information about him specifically, he suits better as a townie. He's kind of like Flynn Rider in that case. Like we know that he probably has family, friends, a home, but when the character is introduced to us, they're sort of just roaming around the woods and they don't have much in terms of like established locations or other side characters that they are personally connected to. And so they just suit like a townie role. And then you can do a lot of things with that. You can move them in with Snow White in her castle if you would like to later on. on. You can explore the two of them maybe like running off and being on their own and living at the cottage here together, or you can play it like true for the story and have Snow White move into this cottage with the seven dwarves once again and like go through the whole storyline and see if you can kind of like organically find him out in the wild since he is a townie. And so that being said, Snow White's cottage before, when I had it in Hemford on Bagley, it was for not just the dwarves but also for Snow herself, because the castle didn't exist and I knew that I was going to be obviously including Snow White. She's a Disney princess, so she's going to make it into the save file. She originally lived here. She had a room in this house and she was a part of this household and filled it out because there's seven dwarves plus her, which makes in total 8 Sims. But now we don't need her here. She's going to go live in her castle, and I did other videos where I included her new household and all of the things regarding her. She's literally right next door. So check out those videos if you haven't seen them. It does talk a little bit more about Snow, but all that to say, there would be room for you to move her into this household if you needed to, so that you could play through the storyline properly, because she was always designed to sort of live here. She even has a bedroom in this house, and I toned back the specificness of it being her bedroom so that it could be a little bit more all-encompassing for the dwarves, some of their hobbies, the things that they sort of need for like a home like this. Prince Florian's Create-A-Sim, since he is a solo sim, and like I said, I'm not going to be making other family members of him. I hate making videos of just one sim. I used to do it all the time, and I felt like over time that it was just like too much content, too many videos. So now I like to do entire households together in one Create-A-Sim, obviously. But when it comes to solo townie sims, every once in a while I get one of those, or even just a solo sim in general. I had this issue back when it was in Oasis Springs for Rafiki, same issues. I don't like making just like one Create-A-Sim video because it's never enough footage and it's like a couple minutes long and then you kind of get that one character. There's not enough time in the video for me to even really explain the character super well. So what I ended up doing, you will see Prince Florian in the next video. He's going to be included in the footage with Happily Ever After. I know that that doesn't really like correlate with him necessarily. However, if you never saw Happily Ever After and what it actually is, it is a scene and a garden that's based after Snow White's death scene and her glass coffin, and the whole garden is sort of based around that in the center. And so of all the scenes in Snow White, he actually has quite a bit to do with that specific one. So I just threw that footage into the end of the video so that you guys could at least see Florian and what I did with him. And so you can expect that very, very soon. After that, there's one more Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs lot in this neighborhood. I don't know if I've talked about it in previous videos. I probably have spoiled it. If you like stay later in videos, I usually like spoil what I'm going to be working on. I'm not going to today though, because I don't remember if I did it or not, but we will be doing that lot and then we're done with this neighborhood. And I don't think there's actually any more characters from Snow White that we'll be doing. The Huntsman was created a very long time ago. He still is currently in Hemford on Bagley because he serves as one of the NPC world roles over there. And I'm probably going to be pulling him since I removed all the other Snow White stuff from Hemford on Bagley and he can get moved over here as a townie. But the reason I haven't done it yet is because I can't decide who to replace him with because I need that world role. I think he's the barkeeper or the bartender pub owner. It's one of the like dedicated necessary world roles, and Gaston's Tavern is the pub of that world. So it had been talked about like a really long time ago to possibly have it be Gaston. But like I've said in previous videos, I don't actually think Gaston owning his own tavern, running it, be the barkeeper and like running a business essentially is really Gaston's vibe. He's more of a let someone else do it for him. And I also think that the Bells Village townsfolk sort of created the pub in like memorial or awe or dedication of Gaston, and they call it and name it after him because they love him so much, not necessarily because he has like a ton to do with the establishment itself. So I'm still trying to work out who I'm going to replace that role with. And then once I work that out, I will move the Huntsman into this world, probably just as a standard single sim townie. And And other than that, there really isn't anything else Snow White to do. It's a very short movie. It doesn't have a ton of detail to it. It was one of the earliest Disney films that I will ever be putting into the Disney Save. And honestly, I think getting 4 lots basically off of Snow White is already quite a bit, in my opinion. It has probably been a little while since you guys heard from me. I was on my trip to Disneyland, California. And so I basically I got myself in a really bad situation where I had some stuff going on in my personal life. I was switching jobs and I was starting a new job, and it was happening just a few weeks before the trip. So I was trying to get ahead in content and bulk record and get myself sort of ahead so that there would be some videos when I left on my trip. And that's usually the goal, but I wasn't really that successful because I worked a ton of extra hours that I would not normally work, like preparing for my new role and everything. And then all of a sudden my trip is upon me and I have to go, and I just didn't really have anything to pull out. So I'm really sorry about that, but I did go to California and it was amazing. Disneyland was amazing. I had a wonderful time. The weather was absolutely beautiful. It did not rain a single day that we were there. It was much, much warmer than I expected it to be. There were a couple of hours in the middle of the day where it would get up to 80+ degrees. I heard from some locals that that might have just been a little bit of poor timing on my part, because I guess they might have been going through a slight heat wave. However, in the evenings, it got really cool, cool enough that when I was sitting for some of the parades or the late nighttime shows, I was really cold. And so it creates this really complicated situation where you're so hot in the middle of the day that you're slightly uncomfortable and you want to wear a certain type of outfit. And then in the evening, you have to change and you have to bring a secondary set of clothing so that you're comfortable, maybe even a blanket in the evening. And I didn't love that, but it's it's one of those things where it's only slightly uncomfortable for a few hours in the middle of the day and 1 or 2 in the evening. So it's not terrible. It's not bad at all. I have been to Paris where it rains for multiple days of my trip. Actually, my husband and I technically had our honeymoon in Paris and it rained every single day for 4 or 5 days straight of our trip. And by the time we were done, I was so ready to go home because you are just soaked to the bone and cold. So I could not possibly complain about California weather. It's beautiful and I really loved it there. I loved being home a little bit. I have been getting homesick most definitely, just for, I guess, the comfortability of being in a place that you are so familiar with. And I don't mean California because I've never been there, but when you're in the country that you originate from, there's some sort of immediate connection and you feel, I don't know, just at peace a little bit, just a little bit, despite, the world and everything crazy that's going on, which we won't get into. There is some comfort that comes when you get to be back where you come from. And I love my goodies and my treats and my little snackies, and I love American food. So I was just so excited, especially to try out all of the things that I see on TikTok and lots of stuff that goes super viral. And I wanted to be able to finally give it a try and be able to put my opinion out there. I put out some TikToks and I will be doing some more of Disneyland related content. So if you want to see anything regarding anything that I put out, I just recently posted a food review of all the things that I ate in Disney and one of the restaurants that we stayed at, or one of the restaurants that we dined at. And then I'm going to be posting a review of the hotel that we stayed at, which was Pixar Place, which overall was really great. So if you want more specific Disneyland content, follow me over there. My TikTok is linked down below. I tend to make more general Disney content. I'm really into pin collecting recently. Within the last year, I've become obsessed with pins, and I feel I do go through waves with Disney merchandise as far as what I'm kind of into. A couple years ago it was, or 5 or 6 years ago, it was Disney ornaments. I still love Disney ornaments and I still actively collect those. So those are always a part of my haul videos and things like that. Then I got really into Loungeflies and ears. Now I am not so much into either. In fact, for Loungefly bags specifically, I will not buy them unless I over the moon love it. but they are just very expensive and very bulky. And I don't love taking them to the parks anymore. So it's like a hard sell for me. I might even like start to declutter some of the ones that I have. Ears are a different story because I do wear them and I actively plan ears and Mickey ears for all outfits that I do in Disney. And I really, really think about it and coordinate it. So I have a ton of them, but I also for a while was collecting ones that I just don't really use and I never ended up wearing. And maybe it was limited edition, or maybe I went to Paris and I just wanted to get a pair of ears just to have them, but I didn't even really like them all that much, or people would gift them to me because they knew it was something that I collected, but it wasn't really my vibe. And so now I have a ton of them. And I was also thinking on TikTok, I might do a decluttering video and be getting rid of some of those as well because I have too many. But my current fixation is Disney pins. And I don't think that this one is necessarily going to go away. It might come in waves here and there. Like, I don't know that I will always be so obsessed with them. My current obsession is that I love Disney princess pins, and I am not a completionist by any means. I'm not like a collector that needs to have every single set. When I see a set that I like, I usually pick a couple out from the set and say to myself, okay, I really like this one and that one, and if I just got those two, I would be happy with that. So I'm not somebody who is like a full-blown scale collector. I don't really know the ins and outs of the whole situation. I know it can get very serious. I know about like all the pin trading stuff that goes on in the parks. I'm very casual. I like what I like. I pick random things up. I don't care how rare or how unrare something is. If I like it, I'm gonna buy it, and that's all. And I just collect what I like. I'm not a completionist. I don't try to get all of something. There are a couple of sets, and I won't bore you with the details of like pin collecting because some of you I'm sure are not into it, but there are a couple sets that I would like to own all of, some very rare, some very sort of common. But if you like pins and you are a pin trader like me, then I've been doing pin unboxings and collection hauls and things like that on my TikTok as well. And I had a blast in Disneyland having full access to all the things that are available there, all of the blind boxes, all of the little like mix it packs, the 5-packs. One of the things that I personally find really distressing, and this is like very first world problems, like not a big deal, but very distressing about living in the UK compared to living in America, is that you get to see all this stuff on social media that you would purchase if you were there, but you can't easily get your hands on it here in the UK. And it's really, really frustrating when I want something and I like make all these lists of like, oh, I would go grab that. And I would just have such quick, easy access to that. Like I could just go to the mall or go down the street. I know exactly where I would go and pick that item up. But I live in the UK and you can't get things sent here, or it's really expensive, or people have it on the secondhand market and they're just charging like crazy prices for it. And I just have to like watch from a distance. So when I'm in America, unfortunately, I feel like it creates a little bit of like an overindulgence situation where I'm like, well, I can only get it right now, so I have to get it. I have to get it now. And I bought somewhere around like 30-ish new pins plus while I was there. Now, some of them are like those little packs that you get like multiple in, so it's not like individual. However, in total, I came home with 50 new pins, and I'm proud of it. I love them all so much. Money well spent, in my opinion. Most of them are princesses or Peter Pan. Some of them are Disneyland. I like the location specific pins too, or event pins. If it's a holiday and they are doing something that's like specifically for Halloween or Christmas, or there's a certain parade going on and they have a pin that's like just for the parade and I was there for that parade. I love all of that. I love, love, love all that. So I'll get stuff like that. Speaking of parades, Disneyland does Paint the Night, which had just come back and was only going to be there for the week I was there. So it had been going longer before that, but I was there the last week that it was running. And I was so, so grateful that I got to experience it because it was amazing. It's one of my favorite parades that I've ever seen. I love Festival of Fantasy if you're a fan of that as well. That's probably like my all-time favorite. That one gets done at Disneyland Paris and also Disney World. I've seen it in both locations, and both times it's just been amazing. So I didn't think it was going to top that, but honestly, I think it did. It was so cool. I loved the nighttime ambiance. I loved all of the glowing. I had a really good time overall in Disneyland. I would give it like a solid 7 or 8 out of 10. I do prefer, I think, Disney World. I know this is going to get controversial. It might even be triggering to some people. However, as somebody who's been to 3 of the Disney parks now, I think Disney World has so much more to offer. There's so much more to do. You can almost never run out of things to do in Disney World. There's a higher variety of food. I find the food maybe just slightly better in Disney World than in Disneyland, but honestly, I was very, very, very impressed with the food in Disneyland overall. I just think that there's a better variety. There's a little bit better quality, just a little bit in Disney World. There are pros and cons to both locations. Don't get me wrong. I think that I was having like a fabulous time and everything was like 10 out of 10. And then towards the end of the trip, we had a couple of hiccups with things that definitely stressed me out and made me feel like, oh, I don't think I would experience this at Disney World. So that put a little bit of a sour taste on the situation. One of the things was Fantasmic. If you're not aware, Disney World has an entire stadium that's available for Fantasmic. And when you do Fantasmic at Disneyland, you are sitting against the water in Tom Sawyer Island, like around the lake area. However, they gate off and sell all of that waterfront area for dining packages. Now, not all of it, but almost to the point where if you don't have a dining package, you have to stand very, very, very far to one side or the other. And the show is very obscured. And if you don't want to stand in the like obscured viewing, you can stand further back, which is fine. But I unfortunately got stuck in an area that was just like terrible viewing. And we were there 2.5 hours early. So we picked what we thought were like really, really good spots and should have been good spots. But there was one pole and my pole unfortunately like blocked the grand finale. So there is a moment at the end where Maleficent comes up and like kind of grows out of the ground. And she was lined up perfectly with the pole that I was standing near. And I could not see a single second of it. And I think it just put like a sour moment on the situation because we had been trying to find a good spot for hours and we were there very, very early. And I talked to several cast members and they kind of directed us around. And I knew about the dining situation. I knew that they were going to do that. And don't get me wrong, they also do that at Disney World, but I have never sat at the Disney dining in Disney World for Fantasmic. And I never feel like my view is like terrible when I go and sit in the stadium. So to show up so early for Fantasmic, to be so excited for it, to speak to several cast members about where to stand, what's a good spot, what do you recommend? And they put me there basically, and I end up obscured and I can't see the show. And everybody in front of me, some of them were dining people, which also would have been obscured, by the way. Like essentially I was right behind where some of the dining people would have paid to sit. So that being said, people that were immediately in front of me also couldn't see, but they paid to not see, and I didn't pay to not see. So I was really frustrated with that entire situation. You wait all week to see Fantasmic because they only run it on the weekends for some reason, and I can see kind of why. Also, Toontown closes early when Fantasmic is running, which I guess I didn't really understand, but I do get why. And I didn't know that. So we tried to do Toontown later in the evening and it was closing. And it was just like a domino effect of bad things that were happening that really soured the night. The popcorn stands closed when they weren't supposed to. I couldn't get popcorn. Just dumb things, dumb little things. But I was not pleased. You are there and you spend so much money and you like wait for this really big moment. And it just didn't work out. And that's okay. Worse things can happen. All that to say, it's just one thing that I feel like because Disney World has the stadium, it is just a little bit better done over there. And it's something that couldn't have been done or created necessarily back when the park was created because it's just a very different time and they planned things differently for different locations. I get all that. I understand that. But just comparing the two and like my experiences at the two, I was like, yeah, this would never happen at Disney World. This is very frustrating. We also had a pretty poor dining experience at the Blue Bayou. And I think that might have even been the same day. So it was like one day of just like really poor experiences, but every other day was phenomenal. Every other day I was just like so in my vibes, happy to be there. Everyone was lovely. Staff is lovely, super clean. So clean, so beautiful. Animals everywhere. It's like pure paradise. Like you could not want to be anywhere else in the world, really. I know why people get stuck in this cycle of like you get to that time of year where it's time to pick a new location to maybe travel to if you're so fortunate, and you end up picking Disney over and over and over again, because when you get there, it's just such a high quality, fun experience that is so hard to like perfectly replicate in other places and other situations, that like if I go there, I'm gonna spend a lot of money, but it's gonna be a really, really high quality experience, and I'm gonna have fun 99.99% of the time, and it's clean and it's beautiful, and the staff are so friendly and helpful, and the food is good, and I get to eat pizza, and it's some of the best pizza in the world and some of the best tacos in the world. So all like cheers all around, claps all around to Disneyland. I would love to go back. My husband and I probably will. We said that we stayed in Pixar Place Hotel, so we would like to go back and possibly stay in the Disneyland Hotel, depending on the situation at the time for us. And that would probably be, we'd be looking like 5 years plus out to possibly go back to Disneyland. We have other places we'd like to go. I really, really have been speaking so long that I want to go to Japan for multiple reasons, not just Disney. I just love Japan, and I really, really feel like I need to go there. We want to do a cruise. We want to go somewhere a little bit, maybe more tropical, but we're not really like sit on the beach type of people. So it has to be very like excursion or cruisy, something kind of in that vibe. I don't know. Leave your recommendations down below. Any locations that you've traveled to that you absolutely loved, anything you absolutely hated. Let me know all down below so that I can maybe get some vibes on where we should pick our next place to be. I don't really know what we're going to do as of next year at all. As far as the interior on Snow White's cottage today, you can see I basically toned the colors to be warmer and darker and a little bit more cluttered and condensed, so it has more of those like standard cottage vibes. A bit of Enchanted by Nature definitely helps in here, but I feel like for some reason when I originally built this cottage, I was really thinking about that it was like a worn down cottage, and maybe even the movie sort of depicts it this way, where they're using like that washed wood tone that's very light, but I have made the executive decision that it doesn't give the right vibe in here. And since I changed all of the stuff on the exterior and I reworked the colors, it no longer suited the interior anymore either. So a lot of what was here, the integrity of it, the layout, the design gets to stay, but I don't like the colorways that I used anymore. I did something a lot more warm and rich, more Enchanted by Nature color palettes, more Ravenwood as well too. I try to work a little bit of whatever pack we are working for like that given world into all of the builds, and it helps with cohesion overall. I did make the kitchen one tile shorter, so the kitchen gets bumped over a little bit, which meant that I had to rework the kitchen. I reworked some of the seating areas that originally included enough places for Snow White to sit and eat or be a part of the fireplace circle, but it's not necessary anymore because she doesn't technically live here. And it really will be okay if we don't have 8 chairs like around every given location. It'll still function well. And even with that being said, you usually can't get that many Sims to sit down and do something together like that anyway. So even though we actively have 7 Sims that live here and probably do similarly, like eat at the same time, sit around the campfire at the same time, to get them to actually all do that together would be a bit of a challenge. So it's gonna be fine if there aren't exactly that many particular seats around the given spaces. But we did need to have, of course, 7 beds. They do sleep all upstairs together in one giant like attic type of bedroom. And in the movie, the way that this is portrayed is that they have all of their beds pushed up together and they sleep sort of, I guess, like if one of them was in the middle, they sleep like cohabitedly or whatever the word may be. They sleep together. But the reason I can't do that is because Sims will say that they can't reach the bed that's like in the middle of the pile. Or if you are unfortunate and you have someone go to bed and they do like sleep on the other side, they're gonna block everybody from being able to scoot over to the other beds. And I think that if you have single beds next to one another, they can't scoot across the single beds anyway. So although I recognize that that is something like a detail that I maybe should have included, there's no way to do that mechanically. So I spread them all out, give them each a little bit of space. Ooh, something else that I did include in the build now, we have crystal creations now, and I believe when I originally made this, we did not. So obviously making jewelry and jewelry working is not exactly what these characters are doing, but it is one of the closest things that we have potentially to collecting and mining and digging and like the thing that they are depicted as doing in the film. It might be one of the only hobbies that we have that correlates in some regard. So I wanted to bring in some crystal creation stuff in here, some of the little like wall hanging tools, some of the working tables, like the crystal working tables. And it depends on when you play. If you really want to get them into that, you can. Like, that can be the hobby that you explore with them. You can also take it down the path of more like collecting, because I believe the gemstones that are available in the game and the crystals that are available, I believe those are collectible in some regard, and you can like go around and try to complete the collection. So it could also just be that. And it was just something to do. It's something that makes sense for like the given time period of Snow White, and something that I felt like I could throw in that was at least somewhat relevant to the situation. Another little change I made to this lot in comparison to the older version, in the old version, I did not want to, or maybe I didn't know how, I don't know why, but the bridge on the original version was non-functional. Maybe I didn't want to put the platform under the bridge, because since it's an arced bridge, it creates a similar issue to Horn King's Castle situation when you try to do like arced bridge and walkways, but then you put the straight platform underneath it, you can see the platform and the sim ends up walking through the bridge. But it's okay. I don't really think it matters that much. It might have been something that like mattered to me in the past that just doesn't matter anymore. What matters to me a little bit more is making sure that the bridge is functional so that they can easily go over the river walkway rather than having to walk all the way around the back of the lot. I think that that's actually a little bit better of a decision. So your sims can now go over the bridge. And in the backyard, I expanded the gardening area. This lot has always had the simple living trait, which is from Hemford on Bagley, and it is a lot trait that means that you have to grow everything that you eat. So the refrigerator will not really work or generate food by default. You can't like purchase things by clicking on the stove. You have to have it in your Sims inventory or put it in the fridge manually. And it creates like somewhat of an added challenge that is realistic to the time period of what they're in. Like realistically, they would participate in some kind of growing, gathering, and or trading to get what they need for this time period. If you don't like it, turn it off. It can definitely be a little bit annoying, but now you have the garden in the backyard that is bigger, so it's going to make it much easier to be able to participate in that if you want to. There's also a clothesline back there. There's like washing, so you can do all the hand washing, all the manual labor that these guys probably like let pile up as they go and work a hard job every single day. You could do all of that on the side, or maybe Dopey comes home and like takes care of it all. Somebody's doing it at least a little bit before Snow White shows up. When she shows up, the cottage is like definitely filthy and cobwebs everywhere, but they are still eating, rest assured. Like these characters are not starving. So somebody is actively feeding them and washing clothes and prepping them for the world at least a little bit. So we can make that like the added challenge of the situation. And I also kept the outhouse. The outhouse is tough because I did want to replace it with the new item that we got, but like I've talked about in previous videos, I just don't feel comfortable doing that in all of my builds, since it will not be an available item to everybody who plays The Sims, because if you didn't do that event that had the outhouse, that makes it a tough situation when you download the lot, essentially. That being said, I believe for playability, I do have a small bathroom downstairs that's included like inside of the home. But, you know, that's more so just because it can get a little bit annoying to walk outside depending on the weather and snow and things. I don't know if it snows in Ravenwood though. I have no idea. I actually haven't looked that up at all. Let me know, someone, if you know. The piano is in here, some musical equipment, and the candle making table as well, just as like a little side fun hobby, something that they probably need, like they need candles. So it could be something you explore. It could be something that just collects dust. It doesn't matter to me. It's whatever you want to do. And that is going to be it for the Snow White Cottage refresh. I hope you guys like the new look of everything. Let me know your thoughts, of course, down in the comment section below, and stay tuned for the next video, which is the Happily Ever After refresh and the Prince Florian Create-A-Sim. Let me know all of your Disneyland, Disney World thoughts, your comparisons, your hot takes, your not so hot takes. If you've been to both, which one do you like better? I love hearing stuff like that. I think it's really interesting. Thank you guys all so much for watching today, and I will talk to you all in the next one.